Well, hello, everybody. Dave Stevens once again coming to you from the Geary, Stein, and Stevens show. And we have a great show tonight. Fair enough, we're kicking off the hockey season, NHL season 2022-23 kicking off. So a lot of fans excited because it's early part of the year. So we have an amazing guest for you tonight. But first, I got to bring in my co-hosts because they know a little bit about hockey because they're in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. I got Troy Geary and, of course, Will Stein. And guys, hey, we are back in the saddle and we are kicking things off. And I'm really excited about our guest tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited about it for our first NHL player, former player. And with, like I said, with the hockey season kicking off here in a couple of weeks, great guest to have.
Yeah,
In
and I know Will's
Minnesota
ready.
in Minnesota being the state of hockey, anytime we can talk hockey in the state of Minnesota, I think. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens with the NHL season this year too. We'll see.
We're going to ask our guest tonight a little bit about the current season and what he's doing. But of course, this guy, I mean, this is one of I'm excited about our guest tonight. His legacy as a Washington Capital. Olaf Kolzig was an all-star, Vezina Trophy winner, just one of the best goalies you've ever seen in the NHL. Just made some amazing saves over his career. 303 career wins. He's got the most playoff shutouts, most everything in the category of goalie for the team is part of this guy. And so we are so excited to have Olaf Kolzig taking time from his duties with the Washington Capitals joining us. And Olaf, we're kind of taking a look at some of your career highlights and some of those great saves. So thanks for being a part of the show tonight and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm not so sure. Maybe teaching the goalies nowadays to play that way, though.
Well, as we look at this, I mean, your journey, you come from Johannesburg, South Africa. You make a stop in Canada. You end up in the U.S. You wind up playing for Germany. I mean, your passport's been everywhere. But one thing was consistent was your play behind the net.
Yeah, my good friend actually gave me the title of Germafricadian. I've got kind of a mutt when it comes to nationalities, but yeah, I was fortunate to have a long career in the NHL. A lot of that had to do with a team that was very patient in me. The Caps, when they drafted me, I'm sure thought I would become more of a legitimate goalie earlier on, but it just took me a little bit of time. But I think once I got my footing, I ended up having a very good career.
Yeah, well, so take us on that journey. I mean, it's such a crazy. So you end up in Johannesburg, and then you go to Canada. And did you fall in love with the game when you were in Canada, or I mean, how did that early development take that place?
Yeah, so I was born in. My parents were German. They moved down to Johannesburg to start work, and they got married. And soon after I came along, we spent another couple of years there. We moved to Copenhagen for a year. My dad was in the hotel business. And then he got transferred to Edmonton, where he worked for the Westin Hotel brand. My dad was a big fan of hockey growing up over in Europe, and when we moved to Canada, he just saw fit that maybe he would introduce his son to the game, and that's kind of how I started. Unfortunately, back then in Edmonton, at a young age, we were playing hockey outdoors, and if anybody knows what Edmonton's like. Well, I mean, you guys do. You live in Minnesota, so imagine Minnesota in the middle of January, what that's like, and playing in outdoor arenas. So getting hit by a puck wasn't very fun.
Yeah, 1989 NHL Draft was held right here in Minnesota in Bloomington at the Met Center, which is now a Mall of America parking lot, if you didn't know. What was it like that day? I mean, did you know Washington was interested in you? And back then, for people that don't know, there was only 21 picks in the first round. So for you to be picked as a goalie, that was kind of unheard of at the time.
I knew they were interested. They'd interviewed me about 3 or 4 times. I also knew they were interested in Byron Dafoe, who was the other goalie that I was competing with. So when they did call my name at 19, I was ecstatic. A few years prior to that, I had really didn't didn't envision myself in getting drafted. And then I had a pretty good junior year and started talking with some teams. And I knew it became serious when Washington talked to me again. And so I was excited, and I was doing some media obligations behind the scenes after I'd gotten drafted. And then I hear on the PA that Byron Defoe got taken in the second round by Washington. So my arch nemesis back in junior was now my arch nemesis in Washington, and we didn't get along really well when we played junior against each other, but we became best of friends soon after, which was a little ironic. But it was a fabulous weekend. I remember I really enjoyed my time in Minneapolis. We joke around that the draft was so bad that year that they ended up blowing up the Met Center. But now it's a great venue for people to go if they need to go, shopping or go to the amusement park or skate in an indoor arena.
Will?
Describe the honor of competing in 2 Winter Olympics for Germany and what you remember most about that experience.
Well, I'll always say that the Olympics is probably one of my most memorable experiences. The first one in Nagano in '98 was really the first year I became a number 1 guy in the NHL. So I had a lot of confidence going into those Olympics, even though Germany wasn't really a powerhouse. But I just remember being in the athletes village and just being around all these world-class athletes. And it didn't matter if you were one of the highest paid guys in the NHL or you were somebody that was competing in the ski jump. I mean, everybody was equal. They were all world-class athletes. I got to know so many people. And then, my second Olympics I missed because I'd gotten hurt 2 days prior, and that was the Salt Lake games. I still ended up going, trying to be part of the team and hoping that after a week I would be able to play. And unfortunately that never happened. But I was fortunate enough to wait another 4 years and then get invited to Torino, head over to Italy. And it's just something about representing your country and being around these world-class athletes, competing at the highest level. It's fantastic. And I mean, you look at the history of the Olympics dating way back, back in the when the Greek Olympics first started. You just can't help but just sit back in awe and it was great telling my kids when they were old enough to tell them that their dad had played in 2 Olympics. They were pretty awestruck.
Well, the nickname Ole the Goalie, when did that kind of jump into your life? And I mean, it sounds like it should have been a great cartoon character with a cool kid that saves people, this amazing goalie. So what's the background behind that nickname?
So what happened when I was playing minor hockey, and it just kind of, my real name is Olaf, and it just over the years, kids started calling me Ole, and then I think at one hockey tournament, one of the parents just came up with the name Ole the Goalie. And I mean, it took a little while for it to actually, it took longer than it should have because I was a goalie for a few years before somebody came up with that. And anyway, they came up with it and it kind of stuck. But the other nickname that I'd gotten happened when I was a pro, Godzilla. I got loaned out to Rochester, the American League, and if anybody that knows me, I played with a lot of emotion. I wore my emotions on my sleeve. If things didn't go well, I had the tendency to break a stick here or there, take a penalty here and there. So I was in Rochester, and after a few games, I was playing well. The team was winning, and I remember coming on the ice, and somebody had a card that said, nobody beats Godzilla. And, it just stuck since then. I shortened it to Zilla, and I had that on my mask, and I had a few renditions of the paint job I wanted for my mask before I finally settled on the final design. And I'd like to think it ended up being kind of an iconic mask.
Yeah, it really was. And we are going down some great memory lane with the legend, Ole the goalie, Olaf Kolzig. And we're going to continue it, but we got to, of course, talk about some things that keeps us on the air. So we'll be back with Ole the goalie in just a minute. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about this amazing new product that we have the privilege of having now sponsor us. And it's this is a drink that's going to change your life. You take away all the stuff that you have to do, the preservatives and things that you're taking on a daily basis. You take Athletic Greens or AG1, and it's so easy to use. In fact, I take like frozen fruit and I mix with it, and it works real well as far as blending it and putting it together, and then you drink it. In fact, I don't even know where I set my drink here, but I've got it right here, and it tastes great. So it's very easy to put together, and like I said, you're going to want to use this. And if you support us like everybody has been, and we've got some amazing fans out there, to make it easy, Athletic Greens has said, hey, we'll give you 1 year supply of vitamin D, 5 free travel packs, and all kinds of stuff to help you supplement. So just go to athleticgreens.com/GSS, and you type in that code, and of course you get great discount and all the good things and the perks that you get from our channel. So continue to follow us, continue to support us. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, everybody. Dave Stevens from the Geary, Stein, and Stevens show. And you know what? The Arizona Cardinals take their turf outside in the middle of the week to make sure the sun gets to it. But we don't have that luxury for what we have down below. That's why we need to use the amazing Manscape products like this crop preserver. I put it on my face, I put it down below, and I smell great. And of course, you know what? You got to follow up that with a crop reviver. You've got to use the Manscaped 4.0 and, of course, the Weed Whacker. The Manscaped products are great. I use them everywhere I go. My friends keep asking me, how can we get them? Well, if you type in the code GSS Show, you save 20% on all of the Manscaped products. They're great for everyone, and to quote Frank Thomas, she'll like it too.
Well, we got out of that. I think we're still here. We apologize for that. Troy, have we got everybody still? Troy, are you there? Is everybody there? Hello? Hello, hello, hello. All right, I'm gonna end recording and start, and we'll just have 2 breaks, okay? We'll put the show together in 2 things. You guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
You had us
Yep.
muted there.
We apologize to our listeners and viewers. You're all staring at your podcasts. We've got ghosts and goblins tonight. Hopefully you saw the Manscaped commercial. I don't know if it ended, but we've got these great products here. I know, Troy, you've been using the shampoos, and I can't talk enough about what these do for me. In fact, I took away the beard tonight and used all the Manscaped products to look good and feel good. And of course, we didn't get to talk real quick, but about AG1. Troy, I know you're taking it. Will, what's it been like for you guys to take this stuff?
So yesterday, before I went tailgate, I knew I needed to be full of energy all night. So I had one, and it gave me energy throughout the day for tailgating before the football game. And then it just let me feel like I was on a cloud in the sky or something.
Yes, and it tastes good, it looks good, and it's pretty easy to do. So thanks again for our new sponsors, AG1. But let's get back to the show and our technical difficulties. Olaf is joining us fresh from the practice. The NHL season starts this week. We don't want to say when, because then you'll know we taped this on Monday. But I just gave it away. But Olaf, I wanted to bring up something too that we don't get to talk about a lot as far as how goalies are. But I'm not sure if you remember back in your minor league days, this little gem that I was able to uncover of you clearing the puck, length of the ice, and there's a goal. A goal for Ole the goalie. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah, that was not sure what date in November, but that was November of 1990. Sorry, November of '89, and I just came back from my stint with Washington and hadn't been playing very well. And this was kind of my breakout game when I got home. Actually, I think I guess I had a Gordie Howe hat trick. I had a goal, assist, and a penalty. It wasn't a fight, but it was a penalty. So, from a goalie standpoint, I had a Gordie Howe. But yeah, that was pretty cool. The guys cleared the bench, and I mean, I'd like to say that I elevated it above everybody's head, but I literally was 3 feet off the ice. I remember one of my players had to actually lift his leg to let it go by. But obviously, I was the first guy in Western League history to do it at the time. I think there's been a bunch more since then, but the guys clearing the bench, and it was a packed building. I think I ended up being on George Michael's Sports Machine the next night. And
you're dating it now.
One of the few highlights of my season that year.
And hey, 17 career assists too. I mean, that's not too shabby. I mean, you were always looking to move that puck and get it out.
So a real quick story. Yeah. I used to play the puck quite a bit, and I got a call from Jack Button the next day, who was our director of player personnel in Washington. And he was talking to me, and he's like, so I heard you had a pretty special night last night. And I was just gloating. I said, Jack, it was unbelievable. You had a goal and assist and a penalty and all this stuff. And the guys cleared the bench, and he's just sitting there listening. And he's like, mm-hmm. He's like, well, last time I checked, we drafted you to stop the puck, and you have not been doing that good of a job of that. So I suggest you maybe stay in your net. So I don't think I went back out and handled the puck the rest of the season. So it took me a couple of years to finally be adventurous enough to get back out there and handle the puck. But I was, I'm not as good as the guys that they are nowadays. But back then, I mean, I looked up to Ron Hextall and modeled my game a little bit after his. Obviously, both had pretty bad tempers and big guys, and I like to handle the puck, and yeah, so it was a big part for me. I wanted to help protect our defensemen, and so yeah, I think 17 of them I would probably say 10 of those were to Ovi, who I just touched the puck for, and he skated all the way down and ended up scoring. So it wasn't like I made a tape pass down the ice.
From time to time, we ask our listeners to submit a question, and I have one from Guy in Duluth, Minnesota, where I'm really outside of here. And you're a development coach now with the Washington Capitals, for those that don't know, and you have a guy there that's from this area, Hunter Shepard. Can you talk about his development, and do you see him in the future being a starter in the NHL?
Starter in the NHL. I mean, he's only a second-year pro, but Hunter he's not the prettiest goalie when you're watching him play, but man, is he competitive, and he gets the job done. He competes in there like somebody I've never seen before. There's a reason why he's won 2 NCAA championships, and this short stint with us in Hershey last year, he won his games. He's gonna remain in Hershey this year, and then it's just a matter of how he progresses. Like last year, he was on the coast, and had some success there. Like I said, the short time that he was in Hershey, he played well for us. He's going to have a bigger role for us this year, and we'll see how he progresses. But if he continues with his trend, I mean, he got a little preseason action against Buffalo in training camp, and but he's not a man of many words, but boy, he speaks more with his actions than he does with his mouth.
So you're the co-owner of the Tri-City Americans of the Western Hockey League with one of your former teammates, Stu Barnes. How did that become a reality?
So I was a kind of a silent owner, but I mean, that's obvious. I started with the Tri-City Americans. We moved from New Westminster back in '88, and I played a couple of years there, and I ended up calling Tri-Cities home. I met my wife there. obviously became great friends with Stu. Stu met his wife there. And so over the years, we were part of the alumni, and we had some successful years in the NHL, and we talked about, maybe someday owning the team. And I was approached by the previous ownership group about, becoming a silent partner, helping out more so with the marketing and being a local guy. But I didn't, back in the day, or back at the time, I didn't realize they had some underlying reasonings for buying the team. They wanted to prove to the league that it couldn't work, and which would have gave them the right to move the team, which is what they wanted to do. And unfortunately, they didn't seek approval from the rest of the teams in our division, and the U.S. teams weren't going to let it go. So I ended up talking with Stu, and we've gotten Bob Torrey, who was the GM at the time, and another local businessman involved, and so we approached the league about keeping the team. And anyway, back and forth it went, and they were gonna grant us an expansion team, which is not what we wanted, because we have an expansion team. The team that's there is moving, and they're going to take all the records with them, and that's the records that Stu and I have, part of that franchise. So, long story short, they ended up giving us the team and granting that other group a expansion franchise, which they ran into the ground about 4 or 5 years later. And so that's how it happened. That was in 2005, and we've had it ever since. I mean, we've had some fantastic years. We ended up, we've gone to the finals a couple times. We've had a streak of 100-point seasons. Right now we're in the process of rebuilding, so we'll probably be another year or two before we're relevant again. But it's been a lot of fun. And now the fact that Stu is behind the bench coaching makes it even more fun.
Olaf, I know you've gotten all kinds of medals and trophies and things along the way, but I'm wondering if you have any special, memorabilia, including, I don't know, maybe something along the lines of, let's see, right here. This was, where are we at? I'm trying to find it. There we go. I'm trying to find the graphics here. This amazing starting lineup goalie. I don't know if you saw that back in the day, and if you thought it looked like you. A lot of times people don't think their toys look like them, but I was able to find this on Amazon, and I'm just wondering, if you ever got to have, the benefits of being in the Players Association for all the money that must have come in from this toy.
Well, I didn't receive any money from the toy, but I do have a few of those in the storage unit somewhere. But incredibly, the likeliness or the likeness was pretty spot on.
I've seen some real bad ones.
Forehead and big nose, and yeah, they were pretty spot on with it.
So,
Will,
in 2017, 2018, you won your first Stanley Cup as a member of the coaching staff. What was that feeling like, knowing that you played a part of it? And did you get a ring? And if you do you wear it often?
So when we won it, I obviously would have wished to have won it as a player, and unfortunately we lost in the finals to Detroit in '98, and that's as close as I've ever come to doing it. But even winning it as part of the management staff was every bit as fulfilling. I mean, we got to be around the players. We had our own private parties as a group. I had a day with the Stanley Cup. I've got my name on it.
What'd you do with it that day? What was your day like?
It was actually a pretty busy day. I picked the guy up at the airport at 6 a.m, and we went and I took it to a few local businesses where we raised some money for charities. I took it to the Responding to Autism Center, where we had a number of kids take their picture with it. And then I took it home for a couple hours and just had close friends and relatives come by, and we spent a happy hour at home. And then I took it to the country club, and I'd become really good friends with a bunch of the wineries in town. And so I got in touch with one of the wineries, Gordon Brothers Estate Winery, and they produced a bottle for me. It was called Champions Blend, and we used their Tradition wine, which is their high-end wine, and we pour it in the Stanley Cup, and then we would funnel it into these pre-made bottles, real nice glass bottles, and they had the wax top to them. And then that night at the country club, we had a private, well, not a private dinner, it was a fundraising dinner, so you had to buy tickets to come, and we auctioned some of those bottles off, and I think we probably came close to raising $40,000 that night for charity. And but it was just I mean, I didn't want to let it go when it was time for it to leave at midnight. It was just, you can see why guys want to win it again and again. It's just addictive, and just reading all the names on the inside, knowing the history of it, and all the other players and coaches and GMs that have touched that cup. It's just something about it. It was just so special.
And that's what this show is all about, trying to find out those special moments. When we come back, we'll head into the third period of today's show. But first, of course, we've got to thank all of the people that help us and are a part of our show. And again, the viewers out there, all of you on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all of the other things. But of course, we have products that we have to let you know about, and that would include fresh, clean threads. If you'd like 20% off the comfiest, nicest clothes, and my son just bought 2 orders of them. They've got Henleys and pullovers, T-shirts, great things. Everybody deserves to look good. If you go to the website, you find it, you type in the GSS show code, you get 20% off for freshcleanthreads.com. Make sure you use that special code because it gets you all kinds of great savings. And speaking of great savings,
Hi again, everybody. Dave Stevens here for Manscaped. And I've been in baseball for almost 40 years despite not having legs, and I know what it takes to put in a good turf, and that's what Manscaped is all about. What Manscaped does is protects your boys down below, cleans them up, gives them that fresh cut feeling, and also you don't smell like a locker room after. And right now, Manscaped is offering the Performance Package 4.0. It's arrived, and oh man, it's a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear, nose, and hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all the goodies. So right now, if you'd like to save on Manscaped products, go to manscaped.com, type in the code GSSShow, and you will save 20% on Manscaped products, because Manscaped really works, and of course, you want your balls to feel as light as air.
all right. Thanks again to Manscaped for being such a great supporter of our show, and of course, Fresh Clean Threads. And yet I'm wearing my Wickenburg shirt because I'm still in that vacation mode. But we're wrapping up our time with the All-Star, the Vezina Trophy winner. I mean, it is just an honor to have you on our show tonight. But I wanted to talk about what you've done away from the ice. You've done some pretty amazing things that you've been honored for. You've got the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, and I know very near and dear as to what I do with the disabled world is your son was born with autism, and unlike parents who have dreams and aspirations of them following their footsteps and things like that, you had to take a different course as a parent. And if you could just talk about what that battle has been like, and also the champion of the cause that you've done to really raise awareness for autism.
Yeah, so in it was March of 2002, my wife, I was on the road in Buffalo, and my wife had taken my son to his 15-month appointment, and the pediatrician at the time, knew or saw some things that didn't look right, and come to find out, he was very well educated in autism, in the world of autism, and so at the end of the appointment, he obviously had some bad news to tell my wife, and he suggested that we go to the National Children's Medical Center in DC and get a formal diagnosis of autism. And when she called me, it was all I could do to console her, and it was kind of surreal. Back then in the early 2000s, it was one in 1,000 kids or 1 in 1,500 kids that were getting diagnosed with autism, and all I thought of was the movie Rain Man, and so it took a little while for everything to sink in, and And fortunately, I had some ex-team. Well, Stu Barnes was one of them, but his ex-teammate was Scott Mellenby, and Scott had a son, Carter, who was autistic, and so he put me in touch with Scott, and you know, it was a sobering conversation I had with him. Told me, you know, he's not going to sugarcoat. He's not going to lie to me. It's going to be the hardest. It's going to be the hardest time of your life, but it could also be the most fulfilling time of your life. And so after I had the conversation, you know, I buckled up my bootstrings and started getting to work on trying to, you know, figure out what we need to get for our son. And the first part of the nightmare obviously is getting the diagnosis, but the second part is trying to figure out what you need to do. And I always use this analogy. The only thing is one's life threatening and the other isn't. But when you find out you have cancer, there's already a preset, you know, regimen for what you're going to do. And so it's not, it's just not. I mean, obviously, getting the diagnosis is enough, but at least, you know, you're already guided in the right way on how to treat it and try to overcome it. Well, but with autism, that's not the case because there's so much out there, especially when you get on the internet. There's so much out there, and different combinations work for each individual child. So it took us a little while, but fortunately, I was fortunate at the time because we did have access to some really good resources in the DC area that kind of put us on the right track, and we were able to get my son the intervention he needed at that young an age, because you find out that the first 5 years are the most pivotal for brain development, and that if you can get the interventions going, you have a way to retrain the brain. You're not going to cure it, but you have a way to retrain the brain, which in essence will give the, you know, the child a better road to not a normal life, but I guess a better life, a more typical life. And so my son is high functioning. You're right, though. All the dreams that I had, you know, when you do have a son, about, you know, following your dad's footsteps and playing hockey, or, you know, going and learn to play golf, and, you know, they weren't necessarily there, but he's done so many other wonderful things in his life that's made me so proud. And you know, he's become a really good artist. He's a wonderful storyteller. Has a real imagination and puts these stories together. He's got such a dry sense of humor. You know, everybody he's around, he just makes them laugh. And so, yeah, I miss out on my son becoming the next Olaf Kolzig, but he's the one and only Carson Kolzig, and he is. It just makes me smile every time I see him.
That's awesome. And you know, my best friend Jeff, his son has autism, and to just see what the challenges are. And again, there's so much still unknown, and there's been better developments, but it's almost like it's a different flight plan for every child when you're trying to overcome what it is, because we still don't, you know everything and all the aspects to get the best out of what we can learn and how to develop them. So God bless you. And so tell us the foundation and everything that you guys started.
Yeah, so my wife and I started a local foundation in the Northwest area called the Carson Kolzig Foundation, and you know, our main goal is to raise money for the Responding to Autism Center, which is a center in town that, like I told you earlier, when we got the diagnosis, how hard it was for us to get the right resources and guided in the right area. And so we got together with a lady, Christine Lindgren, and through our foundation, she was able to start the Responding to Autism Center. And it's a place where you can come in, you can get evaluated 2 times a month. There's a specialist there that can give the diagnosis. We have resources or we have all the resources that we can guide you to. We've gotten now to the point where those kids when Carson was diagnosed at 3 or 15 months, all those kids that we started seeing at the Responding Autism Center are now adults. And so now we've started to do job placement training. We train these kids, or young adults now, to be able to go out and be productive in the workplace. So it's been a lot of, I mean, it's obviously a lot of tears when we were younger, but now it's paying off, and we're able to help other families that unfortunately have to deal with this. But they know that they're not alone, and like I told you before, the number was 1 in 1,000, 1,500 back in 2001, and now it's 1 in 68. So they're diagnosing it better. Hopefully, there's it's not a case of more kids um, being susceptible to getting it. Hopefully, it's just a case of them being to diagnose it better. But because of that, the awareness has become a lot better. I mean, it's on CNN. Seems like every week. Time Magazine seems to have an article on it all the time. And so, when people think of autism now, I don't think they think of it as Rain Man anymore. A lot of people are pretty educated about it.
Well, I want to personally thank you for all the things you've done in the past and you're currently doing with the foundation. Like I was telling you earlier, my daughter's on the spectrum, so today's her 16th birthday. So I just wanted to personally thank you for doing that. Um, you were part of a select group of goalies that have won 300 games. What does that accomplishment mean to you?
I mean, obviously because of the longevity I had with the organization. I don't know. I'd be quite honest with you. I don't know if that would have happened if it was today's game with the salary cap and teams aren't quite as patient with their players. I don't think there'd be teams out there right now that would have waited as long as they did for me. But regardless, I still fended off all the young kids that wanted to come up and take my job and stayed fairly healthy and was able to play over 700 games. And it was unfortunate we had a stretch near the end of my time in Washington where we went through a total rebuild. So there was like a 3 or 4 year stretch where we didn't win a whole lot of hockey games. So, had we have been competitive throughout that whole time, hopefully it could have been pushing more towards 400. But regardless, I'm still honored to be in that group and very fortunate to have played as long as I did. And now being able to stay with the organization and help in player development and guide the future Caps into hopefully trying to break the records that we established when we played.
Okay, I got to throw this out there. I mean, what the heck does it take to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Like, I'm like, what? How is that phone not rang for you yet?
You know what, the criteria for that is pretty high, and that's not for me to decide, and if I do, great. If I don't, great. Like I said, I've had a great career. I don't lose sleep over it. It would be a huge honor, but it's not something I foresee or expect. So for me, it would be a pleasant surprise. But there's been so many great hockey players out there, and obviously they only put a few in every year, and so it's not. Again, I don't. It's not going to make or break my career or make or break the rest of my life. Like I said, I was fortunate, and I've got zero to complain about.
I have one last question for you. The Capitals haven't issued your number 37 since you retired. Can you talk about that honor and one day, hopefully soon, that they raise your number to the rafters?
Again, I mean, it would be an honor. I've got no control of that. The fact that nobody's worn the number since I retired, I think speaks a lot about the respect they had for me, the training staff. But again, there's a few other players that deserve to be up in the rafters as well. But again, if it happens, great. If not, like I said, I had a great career, and I was fortunate, and it would be a pleasant surprise if it happened.
Well, we can't ask you your picks in the NHL this year because that would be a sort of, you've got to go with your own guys. But, you could be a part of some amazing history. I mean, if your former teammate inches closer and closer, I mean, is that a realistic shot for him to surpass the great one?
I think so. I think as long as, he's this year he came in as good a shape as I've ever seen him. The passion still burns. I think as long as he's got the guys that he's playing with feeding him the puck, he's going to slow down a little bit. It just comes with age, but I don't think that shot is ever going to disappear. And if he's got John Carlson and Nick Backstrom and Evgeny Kuznetsov and TJ Oshie feeding him the puck on the power play, I think I think he went a long way last year in really digging into that by scoring 50 goals So I think he's got to average 26 or something like that the rest of the way now for the remainder of his contract, and I don't see any reason why he can't do it.
And what can you as a coach, can you teach these new goalies that old goalies knew that the new goalies don't know this in this day and age?
You know, for me, I still have a little bit of an old school mindset. I think the goalies nowadays are a little bit too robotic. I don't think they play instinctually enough. So I'd like to tell the goalies to play a little bit more with instinct. Yes, you need your foundation, and you need to be solid and all that. But at the same time, I don't want you to be just automatic. I mean, I want you to read and react to plays, um, and obviously, you need to stay in shape. I think with how fast the game is, and with being so east and west now, you need to be as strong, and I mean, the conditioning has got to be off the charts, and also to prevent injury. I mean, it's a huge thing. If you look at a guy like Vasilevsky, how healthy he's remained here these last 4 or 5 years, and there's no accident why the Tampa Bay Lightning are again one of the favorites this year, and why they've won 2 Stanley Cups and three finals in a row.
I just have a quick follow-up question on the Ovechkin. Watching it on TV, we all see it. He sits over there in the left slot, on the power play. Why are people still just not giving him respect and just letting him shoot those blasts right up in the corner?
You got me. I think part of it has to do with the rest of the guys that are on that power play, to be honest with you. I mean, we've got threats from everywhere. I mean, you can go stand next to Ovechkin, and then it's a 4-on-3 in the rest of the zone. And then you've got, like I said, Backstrom, Carlson, Wilson, Kuznetsov, Oshie. You just go down the list. So, I think they like to try to play the odds, and hopefully, the goalie reads the play well and makes that save. But there are a few teams that do that. They do shadow him, but then somebody else ends up putting the puck in the net. So you can't change everything just for one guy. I know how lethal he is, but again, I think it's more of a respect for the rest of the guys that are on that power play.
Olaf, before we let you go, give us a couple of names that you just hated getting into that crease. They were going to just be relentless on you. Give a couple of those guys.
I mean, Mario Lemieux was probably the toughest guy I played against. Had he stayed healthy, I would have loved to see what kind of numbers he would have put up. And again, he played for Pittsburgh, so we automatically hate the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's why Jaromir Jagr's up there too. Rod Brindamore, Ronnie Francis, they all had success for different reasons. They were guys that would just stay in front of the net, take a beating, and either tip the puck in or just find the rebound and put it in. So they were always tough to play against. Unfortunately, I didn't play against Gretz a lot. He was in the Western Conference most of the time, and then when he was in New York near the end of his career, he wasn't the same player that he was. He was still a great player, but he wasn't the same player. So, Alexei Kovalev, probably the most underrated, in my opinion. I thought was one of the top 3 players I'd ever played against, talent-wise. Those are the guys I probably played against the most. There's a lot of them, and with me getting older, my memory's not quite as good as it used to be. But those guys for sure gave me probably more fits than anybody.
And how about Ovechkin, your own teammate? Did you hate practicing with him?
You know what? When Ovi I was more of a big brother to Ovi. So, when little brother starts pissing big brother off, little brother seems to listen every once in a while. So he was pretty good with me. But the one year that I was playing in Tampa, we did play Washington, and he did manage to get one by me, which still irks me. And it wasn't even a great goal. Like I think he crashed the net. I made the save, and it hit his body and went in the net. So it wasn't like he beat me with a one-timer. But yeah, I'm honored that I gave him at least one goal that hopefully contributes to this record-breaking run he's on.
That's like giving up a home run to Pujols. You hate it at the time, but you get to look back and go, I contributed to that.
True.
So.
And at least I won't be the guy that gave up the winning one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Olaf, thank you so much. Best of luck this season. Will and Troy, anything you want to say before we head out?
I'm just thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. We had a great time, and I look forward to watching some NHL this season.
As do I.
Thank thanks for taking it. As I said, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Every time I think of Olaf, I think of that frozen snowman from the movie Frozen. So
Yeah, and I do tell people I like warm hugs when I do tell them my name. So
That's great.
that was probably the best thing that happened for me as far as being named Olaf was Frozen coming out.
Well, thank you for being a part of our show, Geary, Stein, and Stevens. And again, we also want to thank our sponsors, of course, the wonderful folks from Fresh Clean Threads, 20% off, GSS show code. Same for Manscape, Pro Stance, AG1, of course. Troy, are you drinking your stuff? Make sure you're taking these every day because I'm starting to feel good, man. I'm starting to feel real good. But again, thank you to everybody for your support and your love. Continue to follow us on all social media platforms. And hey, who knows where we're going to show up with another amazing guests. You've been watching Geary, Stein, and Stevens. Everybody, have a great day, great night, wherever you're listening. Take care.